Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to our channel and thanks for logging on. Today we're discussing the Jaeger-LeCoultre Doumetre Chronograph. You can see this 42mm rose gold dual movement single escapement timepiece on our website. Subscribe to our YouTube channel if you enjoy these videos, and please click on the card in the upper right hand corner of the screen at any time during this video to see our full sales listing for this watch with accessories included in the sale, high resolution images for your desktop, and naturally complete pricing details for this Doumetre Chronograph. Now the watch on my wrist represents the 2013 iteration of the Doumetre Chronograph. The watch first came out in 2007, but the changes you see here include not just the open dial, but a subtle reprofiling of the bezel from conical to slightly domed. It adds to the elegance of the watch and pairs its visual volume. Now you can see this is the original 42mm case, however. On my 16cm circumference wrist, truth be told, it measures a little bit more than 42. It's closer to a 42.5. In terms of thickness, quite frankly, it isn't. It does wear like a dress watch on the wrist. 13.7mm. In spite of the complication, thanks to the slope of the bezel, this is an easy watch to fit underneath a dress cuff. Now the watch from lug to lug spans 50mm, so it's compatible with a broad variety of wrist sizes and shapes. I'd say down to 14.5 centimeters in circumference. Your wrist should wear this one well. It is a hefty watch with a fairly deep case profile and substantial lugs. When it's on the wrist, you know it. It's reassuringly solid, like the pocket watches that inspired it. It's a massive piece, impressive in its nuance, its finish, and the depth of its caliber. The pulchritude of its dial is the cherry on the ice cream. It is the icing on the cake. It is the reward. Now you can see there is a dark brown small scale alligator leather strap. I'd say it's a medium scale. You can see it's lightly bolstered down its center with folded edges and a monotone stitch. It's paired with a simple high polish Jaeger-LeCoultre pin buckle for easy on the fly adjustments. I do appreciate that sharp bevel along the edge that echoes the form of the lugs of the watch. Now you can see there's handsome double finish here. The lugs are soldered on with all evidence of their attachment removed, thus by hand double finished to create the satin finish on the flanks and the high polish of the stepped and shapely lugs. The bezel does add an elegance, domed rather than conical. This iteration is somewhat more elegant. At the same time, it's also a little bit softer, perhaps a little bit less masculine, a little bit more of feminine grace to this one, although at over 42mm, very much a man's watch. It's a powerful rose gold, seeming almost like red gold, somewhere between 4N and 5N, and it gives way to a dial that is simply a riot. You can see broad, circular, silver-grained. It has several different focal planes, and the calibrations, despite being numerous, are easy to read. You can see you have radial seconds for the time of day, as well as the chronograph time, which is on a mono counter, hours and minutes at 3 o'clock, chronograph seconds in blue at center, and then there's the foudroyant with 1/6 of a second at 6 o'clock. You'll also note, and you might miss at first glance, there are twin power reserve scales set into the skeletonized half moons of the dial, and if you, perhaps I should call them quarter elliptical rather than half moons, but if you wind the watch, you'll note the power reserves do advance as you wind in both directions, each side alternating as you reverse the direction of the crown, just as you'll note the ratchets on the mainspring barrels. One ratchets and relieves while the other winds. You simply twist back and forth to energize the watch, and there is a relief system built in such that despite the fact that this is a manual wind watch, you cannot accidentally overwind it. Rich and easy to read on the front. It's hard to believe that this watch has no fewer than 8 hands. It's a veritable octopus. Also, note the attention to detail in the variable knurling on the crown, beautifully executed with a frosted center and polished logo. And that's just the crown. Take a look at the caliber 380 here. Manual wind, 50-hour power reserve for both chronograph and the civil time telling functions of the watch. You'll note it's almost like a longa, but what it really is not so much like a longa, but the mutual heritage to which this watch and longa timepieces refer. that is, the pocket watch era, as this watch is inspired by a system of dual power reserve movements made in the Vallée du Jeu by Victorin Piguet and used by, among others, Jaeger-LeCoultre in the 1870s and 1880s. Now, rather than powering the historic minute repeater chronometer that Jaeger built on that of Bausch, this is an all-in-house caliber that uses a lot of the same principles of having two movements, powertrain, two drivetrains, straight to a single balance that acts as the traffic cop for both, alternately impulsing time and chronograph time. Now, of course, when you stop the chronograph, it's a mono pusher, so you can't start, stop, and resume. You must reset. Of course, there is no loss of balance amplitude because of the twin power reserves, and that's the point. It keeps chronometer-grade time, so it'll comply with the ISO 3159 if you were to sit down and time it, and I verified this with my own. Whether you're running the chronograph or not, the balance beats away at 3 Hz or 21,600 vibrations per hour, and it is free-sprung, so it can better take and hold precise regulation and resist vibrations and bumps. Now, when I talk about Longa being aesthetically similar, I mean it's this use of what's known as maillot in the French-speaking watch regions, and what's called German silver in Germany. And of course, it is a combination of nickel and copper that produces this golden hue, not silver of any kind. You can see the contrast with the conventional silver metallic of the barrels. All of the screws kiln-fired and heat-blued, and note the cote de rayon that radiates out from the balance itself. It's the focal point of the watch. Not a simple cote de Genève. It actually radiates and expands like a fan as it moves away from the balance. You'll also note the polished column wheel that serves to cycle the functions of the chronograph. Immaculately finished, this is a higher grade of detailing than you get on a conventional Jaeger-LeCoultre movement. Accurate, beautiful, innovative, and singular. There's really nothing else like it. If you want to look at a comparable, you'd have to go to something like the F.P. Journe Sonographe Souverain. And then, while F.P. Journe has managed to reduce the problem of lost amplitude with the chronograph running, he also faces reduced power reserve. Here, you get a chunkier watch, but no loss of amplitude, no loss of power reserve, and no loss of that unique Duometre identity. See it and own it on our website.